That is one of the greatest examples of visual storytelling that I've come across in the last month. Hi and welcome back to Pencils and Stories, the place that helps you make your own visual story projects. I'm very happy to be back. I took a little break over January, and for this month we're going to talk about visual storytelling. In this video I'm going to talk about what visual storytelling is, how you can recognize it in other people's works, and how you can apply it to your own work. At the end I have a little announcement, so stay tuned for that as well. So first I want to tell you kind of like it's not really a definition, but my definition of visual storytelling. It's using visual elements to tell part of the story for you instead of just using words. And you do that by giving meaning to those elements. And this is a really fun thing because it invites the audience to fill in a lot of gaps with their own brains. But this often goes subconsciously. When you're watching a movie, for example, you might not notice that they kind of use the same compositions every time, or they have like a recurring design element that they bring in. You might not notice it, but your brain subconsciously picks up on that stuff and it gives it like connection. It connects scenes together, connects story points together. It can be super obvious. If you start paying attention to this stuff, a lot of this will become obvious to you. One kind of movie that does this a lot is the animated movie. Everything needs to be designed. You know, live action movies are super designed as well, so they have it too. But because animation can take the visuals a little further sometimes, it becomes really obvious. And I'm gonna talk in future videos in this month about that. It's actually super fun to watch it, to kind of watch those movies and discover all of that stuff. It's one of my favorite things to do. When I go into a new movie that I've never seen before, what I usually like to do is just watch it as an audience. I can kind of switch it off a little bit. I will notice certain things, but I will not go into super analyzing mode. That would be kind of bad if I could never enjoy a movie anymore, like as is. So usually I just dive into the story and I try to be taking on this roller coaster of movie emotions. And then what my brain usually automatically does is when in the week that follows, I will kind of like start analyzing the story, and I start kind of seeing the story structure. And I try to get back to some scenes in my head and try to see how they communicated that. It is something that I can talk about forever. So that's why I wanted to start out 2019 and my first themed month with visual storytelling as a subject, because I love it so much. And visual storytelling is something that carries over into so many forms of storytelling. Even a written word uses. They just use it in a different way. Instead of showing you the visuals, they will, describe it for you. And that is why something like show, don't tell also counts for writing as well. But it applies to children's books. It applies to movies. It applies to comics. It applies to graphic design. It applies to concept art. It just applies to so many things. When you start noticing the stuff, you can kind of get a feel for how you can use it in your own work as well, which is awesome. So what visual storytelling does is it takes visual elements and it gives it meaning. And you can literally give meaning to almost, or maybe I would say anything visual that you use. The most obvious examples of visual storytelling would be the acting of the character, or the character design, or the color, any design, any object in a story as well. Obviously, composition is a very, very big player when it comes to giving you certain kind of messages about what is going on. It also really helps because, especially things like movies and comics, well, comics is not a good example. You have like think balloons, but for example, in movies, it's really hard to show the inner life of the character unless you want to do a voiceover. That's the difference between a book, like a novel, and a movie. In a novel, you can really go into depth in what the character's feeling and thinking. And in movies, you have to show it by how the character behaves and how they act. That's when you can use kind of like these subconscious things like color and composition. Basically grab your entire artist toolbox and use everything you can to communicate as much of what you want to communicate, so you can create a certain kind of reaction or emotion in your audience. And that is something that you can actually control to a certain extent, which is why visual storytelling is both, it's hard, but it's awesome if it works. So everything visual can become something more than it is, because of the meaning you give it. And that's when a picture actually says more than 1,000 words. So a little example of something that was a great example of visual storytelling. And if you've noticed it, it's super obvious, but it went very viral on social media, which indicates that a lot of people did not pick up on this, or at least not consciously. So I want to show you this shot. It was from Spider-Man Into the Spider-Verse. I loved this movie. It was so good. In case you haven't seen it yet, and I actually really encourage you to go see it and watch it in cinemas if you can. But I will just say that there will be possible spoilers in what I'm going to say now. So if you don't like spoilers, then please skip ahead. Obviously, one of the most iconic shots in the movie is this one. This is like the defining moment for the character of Miles, who is, for a big part of the movie, he's very insecure about his spider powers that he has. And is he, up to the task of being Spider-Man? So it's this awesome shot. But the biggest thing, and that was something that was clear from the script, and that is why it went viral, this tiny part of the script actually describes a piece of visual storytelling really well. And if you look at this shot, like consciously, your brain might just think, wow, that's a really cool shot. That looks so cool. But if you look at what the script's actually saying and what the shot is communicating, then you see the power of visual storytelling. And this is a very obvious example. If you know it, it's super obvious. But the script says, Miles walks to the edge of the roof, the wind buffeting, and leaps. The camera is upside down. Miles isn't falling through frame, he's rising. That is one of the greatest examples of visual storytelling that I've come across in the last month, because you probably don't realize that this is happening, that this is being communicated. When you're watching the scene, you just go, what? But just the fact that the character is falling downwards, but the camera made it so that he is actually falling from the bottom of the frame up to the top of the frame, it just gives you an entirely different message. And your brain picks up on it. We pick up on, stuff that rises up. It has a different connotation to us than stuff that's falling down. And this movie is full of visuals that communicate so well and so effectively. And I love that they've put, they put animation and movie and superhero like action stuff together with comic and graphic design elements, and it's just great. And they all, they combine it all to tell the story, and it's really well done. So I will actually put a link to the entire script of Into the Spider-Verse in the description, because they describe a lot of the visual stuff that they do really well in the script. They will put a lot of stuff in there that says, this is the exact same shot as so-and-so scene that came before. It's really fun because it really shows you how they tied like their story structure and their scenes together and kind of made them more meaningful by tying them back to a certain thing that happened before and that they now expand on, or they change something, and all that stuff it's so powerful. So it might be fun to just look at the script and see kind of like what they did and what they were aiming for when they made these movies. So you can definitely learn a ton from studying scripts, actually. Look at other disciplines and kind of look how, even billboards and posters, like how do they communicate their messages visually? And that's all stuff that you can use. Just to give you a small list, you can look at composition, you can look at color, you can look at character and object and world design. You can look at shape language. You can even look at things like perspective. They will be used in that way sometimes as well. If it's comics, look at panels, look at layout, look at how the word balloons are placed. The good thing about, for example, studying animation is because they have gigantic teams of people working on this stuff, and it will just go through so many hands. Everything's designed, everything had to have thought. Every single prop and every single thing in an animated movie has to be designed. So somebody has to think about that and has to think about what it means, or does it fit the style or whatever. So I find animation a very, very good medium to study. It's also one of my favorite mediums, so I'm probably biased. So by studying this, you can actually look at ideas for your own projects and kind of look at how you can incorporate them in your own projects. So the next videos, we're going to dive into some specific visual storytelling elements, composition and color. I also have an idea for a fourth video at the end of the month that I kind of have as a backup, but I really want to hear from you guys if you have any questions about visual storytelling, or did you try it and did you struggle with anything? So please let me know in the comments below. If you have any questions about visual storytelling whatsoever, you can do that in this video, or you can do it in the next video and the one after that. And then I might do a Q&A or give you some more examples of movies and stories that use visual elements to communicate what they want to communicate in the fourth video. So stay tuned for those videos. If you don't want to miss any of them, please subscribe. And if you think this is helpful, share it with one of your artist friends. I promised you a little announcement, and that is that for this month, I will be sending out a special email at the end of the month on the 27th of February that will have an exclusive reward for my email list subscribers. It's going to be a checklist of things that you can use, kind of like visual elements that you can use in your stories, in your projects, and it will have examples of movies. So be sure to subscribe before February 27th, and you will also immediately get my new ebook that's called My 10 Biggest Tips for Successful Personal Projects. And then at the end of the month, on the 27th, I will send you the email with the checklist and some more information about visual storytelling that I did not share anywhere else. Go to pencilsandstories.com/extra. You can actually click the link in the description below. Have a great day and happy art making!